left, like, what are you doing here, you know? So anyway,
Okay, so then on the organization, it's
pretty similar.
organization deficits. Christian will increase his ability to keep monthly calendar in his planner by independently and accurately recording 80% of his homework, upcoming tests or projects. That's part of the current one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. School staff and study skills will check and initial the planner each day and to verify task is being complete. So basically, to verify that he's actually filling out his planner, and and staff will also work with Christian to formulate soft due dates and expectations to complete prior to the due date of upcoming quarter in 4 and 5 days per week. Not sure what.
I think
Teacher will assist
Yeah.
Christian by checking and making sure all homework assignments are in his binder backpack
Yeah.
before leaving study skills
That's part of
each
his
day.
organization stuff too. He doesn't always have all his materials when he comes home. He's like, "Oh, I forgot to bring my math homework," and then we've got to text a friend can you text me a copy? And because do they have a math book, or is it just
Yeah, they have a consumable.
As far as the soft due dates, I think that we didn't do as I thought we. Anyway, I don't know if we made that one as clear as we could.
But that's exactly
could
what's
have,
written
but,
in here, though.
Basically, I guess the idea is for because he with long projects, he has real difficulty. I mean, I'm sure this is kind of happens with a lot with teenagers or whatever, but planning ahead is a real issue. So, but with him especially, and he will he just will not know how to get started. And then what ends up happening is that he misses, like if he has to get something ahead of time, he has to read a book, he'll miss the idea of, reading the book first and then starting the project. And then he thinks that, 2 days before you're going to have to, you're going to read the book.
But you said
So,
you're going to be doing that in your study skills class, correct? If I remember
So
correctly.
if he has a long project or something like that, say a book report, to sit down with him or them or whoever, say, okay, you've got to read the book by this time, you've got to have an outline by this time, you've got to have, a rough draft by this time, and then you have to have your final draft at this time,
So that's what you'll be doing.
and that kind of stuff, to
I'm
set
gonna be
that up with
communicating
him.
the English teacher on that one. So
Mhm.
whenever,
Okay.
because they have those kind of soft dates
Mhm.
and things, right? Because they don't want to just give you a project and be like, oh, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out your own way of organizing this or getting it all done by this set date.
Okay, so they give you like a
They
soft
will-
due date themselves.
Yeah,
and
they're,
then-
they're,
That's like the rough draft process
Yeah.
that sort of makes sure that it's
Yeah.
all in line.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then
I just
that's
want to make sure that's, because I will tell you honestly, we had some lovely people last year, but there was not any follow through. And there were a lot of emails, and I was just like, oh my God, I hate having to keep emailing the same topic. It's like, this just needs to be part of his goal because I just felt like exhausted, honestly, with trying to, and I don't want to be somebody who's nagging you all the time. Honestly, I don't. I have other things to do. And so we're trying to figure out how can we have more follow through so that we know what's in the goal is actually being implemented. Because I know you've got other kids. I'm not expecting you to sit with my kid and give him special attention or treatment or anything. But we're just trying to figure out, what is the best thing that works for you as well. It's not just what we want. We have to kind of communicate and figure out what works. I mean, are you able to sign the planner? Are you guys able to add some of these things, or would you rather not? I'm kind of getting a vibe. I'm very direct that you probably just want to keep things status quo as far as the goals.
I just think that putting us into it, like the teachers or myself, is not. I've never done that. Sort of student-centered goals. So I have no problem signing a planner. We're going to do the planner. I'm going to be communicating with teachers. We're going to have, I'm going to know the dates of things. And I am very much for doing things on that timeline rather than doing things at the very end. So
Yeah.
I'm going to push that. I like to communicate with parents all the time, so I will be sending out notices to you guys in case you didn't see the planner. Hey, they have this essay that's due at this date. Just wanted to, warn you that that's coming. We're going to work on it in class, but if you want to work on it at home, I communicate with you guys as much as I possibly can to, I'll send it through Infinite Campus. So it makes it pretty easy for me to send it to all the teachers on what's going on in their classes. And like I said, they're going to generally be doing the same kinds of things. So it'll be pretty easy for them to know what's happening.
So as far as initialing the planner, you'll add that in the accommodations page, or is that
Well, since we don't have an accommodations page, I'm going to put it on the notes page
on the notes
Okay.
page? Okay.
as, an added
Okay.
thing that we're going to be doing.
Okay.
It is in the goal, even the previous goal of the binder of the daily.
It
plan,
doesn't,
right?
the planner's in there, but it doesn't have a site in it.
No.
It says, is it evaluated by teacher or school staff?
And I could show you last year's binder reminder.
See, that's
Nobody ever
what
looked at
that's what
anything.
that's the problem that we had. Is it what
all
ended up
blank.
happening last year is that they
Yeah, it's blank.
they looked at 2 or 3 of them and then they didn't.
It was
And then
like-
he would write like
I would make him write it at home.
math, or he'd write like page 1 through or page 1 and then dash, and then the other number wasn't there. So you
He
don't know.
doesn't write
Okay,
it
is it
down
1 through
properly.
5? I don't know. What questions was it? I don't know.
Yeah.
What book was it? I don't know. It was just like 1 through 5.
And they would
So,
tell you, you can take a picture.
Somebody
and he
needs
never
to
wanted
like verify that he actually took the note down properly.
Yeah.
He's like awful.
And we're trying to help them search the web pages, and then teachers don't update their websites, and it's like, oh, I don't know what we're gonna do now.
So a lot of times we'd spend 15, 20, half an
Just a
hour
30-minute
just
thing
researching,
figuring it
going
out.
back on websites, doing this, doing
emailing
that.
friends,
Yeah.
Is that all the information that's on your board in 805?
Yeah, it will be.
Because he'll jot things down briefly, and it's like he'll forget parts to the entire homework. So I'm like, well, you're missing something here. Is this all you're supposed to do? I don't remember. Sometimes he'll remember. Sometimes he won't. Inconsistent. Yeah.
We'll wait on it.
Okay.
Okay.
But I want to make good habits now.
Yeah.
After
Yeah,
having
absolutely.
seniors last year and they didn't have good habits. I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to start it.
Are a lot of those
At the
kids from
beginning.
Rio? The ones that don't have the good habits? I'm just
Oh, these are seniors, so they just didn't.
Sorry.
It wasn't important to something.
No.
I'm
They
not trying to
were
get anyone in trouble, but
they're from
Mrs.
out of the
Sanchez
district.
was pretty good, though. She tried her best, but there was a teacher before her who, and no, she was just helping the kids by doing it for them. That's one thing I will mention to you about Christian. I never want anyone to do anything for him. I don't care if he gets an F. He has to learn to do it on his own, because he became prompt dependent in elementary school because he sits there on his math problems and he's not sure what to do, and then teachers would just come up to him and just coach him through, to guide him through on testing and stuff, and I'm like, no. I've told him he knows teachers aren't allowed to help him on tests. He's not allowed to have anyone do anything for him. You don't have a teacher organize your binder. You don't have your RSP teacher do it for you. You have to do it. And we ask him, and he knows, so he's very honest. He tells us, oh yeah, Mrs. Sanchez did my whole binder for me. And so I don't want to get people in trouble. I'm not here to get people in trouble. I'm just here for my kid to learn how to do it. I know you can guide and coach and facilitate, but at some point he's got to do it on his own, so anyway.
I agree.
Okay.
Plus, I'm sure you don't have time to sit there and do that all day for all your
The
kids.
advocacy one. You want to go through it?
Yeah, well, whatever you want to
Okay.
do.
Are you
I think
gonna-
that's going to differ very much from what you were telling us, but because we had this idea in our minds as far as
Yeah.
how we wanted to approach
As far
it.
as the advocacy goal, I'll read what we wrote and then we can discuss it. Christian does not self-advocate, has difficulties knowing when to assert himself, when he needs help, clarification on classwork, homework, and upcoming tests and projects. In study skills, Christian will have a brief weekly meeting with the staff to go over strategies as to what he needs to help with and can improve on. Christian will learn how to use a weekly self-advocacy action plan that will allow him to identify areas of need in each subject and write a brief plan to have action he will take to execute the plan. This will include emailing teachers, parent, RSB teacher, setting up times to meet with teachers based on their office hours, sitting down to get help with teachers if concepts aren't clear, etc. The following week, he will discuss the progress with the study skills staff and formulate a new plan based on changing needs. Staff will verify completion of the plan by signing the space provided. Basically, what we were hoping to do was to have him bring something like this to you, like he fills it out and basically commits to, like every week he fills one out and says, in bio and algebra, whatever, I need help with this particular aspect or this or that, to identify kind of areas where so that he can think about what he needs help with. And then on this over here, he can write, kind of briefly, what he's going to do to address that. So if he needs to, to go see the teacher for extra work, or he needs to go on Khan Academy and, see, look at, download a.
I don't know if it'd be Khan Academy.
Well, whatever.
That's
I
not
mean,
what
it just depends on what it is that he needs to do. If he needs to do some extra research or whatever it is, so that he has a description of what it is he needs to do. He needs to email the teacher, set up an appointment, and go to see the teacher at this particular time. Or he needs to, see the counselor or whatever, so that he has it clear in his head what it is that he needs to do, and you can kind of guide him as far as that's a good idea. You're hazy on this material or whatever. Yeah, go talk to this person or whatever, so that he kind of starts taking responsibility and charge of, formulating that thought and going and doing something about it. And so then if we can
what
have...
we have in the past hasn't worked for him. And
Yeah.
the goal is not actually at the percentage that they say it is. It's not.
Basically what we got before was, he raises his hand, and okay, that's great, but that's
It didn't happen
anecdotal,
very
it's
often,
it's unquantifiable, and it's just one person's kind of impression. But I mean, he raised his hand maybe 2 or 3 times, but maybe he was raising his hand because he felt comfortable with what he was raising his hand with, Usually
It's not to ask
what
for
he
help.
doesn't raise his hand about is what, what's really the issue. So so that's what we're trying to get at, is to get him to kind of, come out with whatever he's having trouble with, and then get a plan together, and then come to you and say, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm saying, maybe briefly meet with him, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, just say, okay, yeah, that sounds good, or he's not going to be here this week, or whatever, so that you can kind of guide him as far as what he needs to do.
It's kind of follow through for us with him, and a way to measure, because there's really been no way to measure anything other than what we see on our end and what he tells us.
And then on the, like, say, week number 2, he comes to you, he's got the plan or the thing, from the previous week, and says, well, and you can ask him, well, what did you do last time? Well, did you follow through with this? Did you follow through with that? And then if you didn't, then, you need to follow through with that. You said you were going to do this. Well, it changed, or this or that. But, so that he can kind of get an idea in his head of what he needs to do and start learning that skill.
I guess from just meeting him, I'm just a little worried that it might be a little overwhelming for him to have all of this, like, If that makes sense. All that expectation.
What do you gather
that he's
from
going,
him?
I really like him. He's very smart. He is very methodical. Like he thinks about everything that he's going to do and say.
He is an obsessive thinker. So yes, he will
Mature.
perseverate on things.
Oh, mature.
But
my God.
I think that, you know, talking to people
He's
is probably
reserved.
not, yes, right? But for me, it's sort of a typical 9th grade, you know, or even high school. Like, it takes a long time to become, you know, super good at advocating for yourself or talking to people. And I have an 18-year-old who doesn't want to even order things at restaurants still. Like, he just doesn't, he does it, but he doesn't like to do it. He's not going to go out of his way to do it. And he's going to be 19, you know? So
This is your own son?
yes.
Oh my God.
So it's,
I see your
it
point to some
takes a
degree.
long time, you know? So I don't want to overwhelm him by, you know, I'd like to sort of be the middleman for a little bit until he gets more comfortable in classes. So if he can come to me and say, you know, this was my question.
That in
Yeah.
itself will be hard, just for him going to you. But I mean, I think
Right, but I want to do more baby steps. I'm worried
So he
that
can be-
that would be, you know, a giant leap that he has to go straight to the teachers and, you know, in all of his classes. You know, he
Well,
might
I
be
mean,
really good
maybe
with Mr.
that's
Redgood,
that's
but-
something that's there that you know I'm gonna or you know you go through you or whatever. But at least it's clearly defined, and
I mean, he can
and-
still fill this out even if
and
he
it's
doesn't go to his teacher every week, or you know what I mean. It's just a way for us to see that he's taking the initiative. Maybe
and that
we
it's
start
being
out with
followed through.
Maybe
That's
he's filling it
essentially
out,
what-
and then you're talking about it.
Or end of French bell.
It's about to.
Let me, sorry. I
Oh, no
have to go
problem.
get Patricia to get me a sub for my next class. Otherwise, I'm going to have a bunch of sophomores sitting in there
Oh, geez.
twiddling their thumbs. I'll be right back.
I kind of feel like it's good to talk about these things even before the IEP. Like, it's good to say, hey, what are your concerns? That way we don't waste all your time. And then we could have kind of resolved a lot of this stuff via email or just, I just feel bad, you know, because I'm like,
And I think some of the self-advocacy goals are
it's just not measurable
sometimes,
for us.
yeah, sometimes difficult because it depends on what they have to take care of.
True, it varies. You know,
Right.
it will vary, and he's not like we were saying. He's not going to go to his teacher every teacher every week,
Right.
but he may email them, and so it's just for him to know, like, I need to be thinking about these things, and I need to start maybe with the emailing process. And so for him to be recording it gives us an idea that he's actually thinking about it. So this is kind of a system for us because there's been no way to measure it, to follow through. It's just verbal. And verbally is not really enough for us to know that it's really being followed at school and it's being followed by him, and we're seeing that somebody is actually working on this with him.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
So, and I know today he's not included. Sometimes
Yeah,
the
we asked him
inclusion-
to be.
Sometimes the inclusion helps promote the self-advocacy.
Of course. No, we know. I told him that. I said, hey, it's important for you to be part of your IEP. He said, it's just too stressful for me. He said, it's too stressful.
And so, sort of to what she's saying is I think if he's being forced to,
Well, I don't know if we want to force him. I think this is just to sort of get him started with thinking about what he needs to do, because emailing is very non-invasive. So emailing teachers is kind of a start. At least we know he's looking at it weekly. He's considering it like, do I need help in bio or algebra? Am I having trouble with something? And what am I going to do to work on that? So, I mean, I don't know how you feel about
I think
it.
it's a matter of how you present it. You say, you know, this is
It's
an
not like you
aid
have
for
to
you
go, you know.
to help you organize, your thoughts, or if you present it by saying, yeah, we're forcing you to go
No.
and talk to your teachers even if you don't want to, then yeah, that's going to be something that he's going to feel uncomfortable doing. But I think if you can present it by saying, well, you know, this is what we're thinking to help you get your ideas down about how you can, ask the teachers to help you, or
Because
not
he's an
just the
avoider.
teachers, but everybody else. It's like,
Yeah.
do I have to email my, do I have, and it's just a matter of saying, well, should I just send an email and asking, how far ahead is this test, or what's this test going to be on, that kind of stuff, where he gets in the habit of, because I'll tell you, like, when we're at home, getting him to email the teacher
Oh yeah.
was like World War III. I mean, it was really hard. Maybe you've gone through it too, but it was like, why are you so against it? It's just, it just seems like the next logical step.
It's breaking that barrier,
But
with the teacher.
obviously, there's a
Fear.
there's a
Fear.
fear component, and there's it's breaking out of that mold of and then getting used to it. But once that habit, like I said, that habit is there, that fear goes away.
It has to be consistent when you look at self-advocacy or learning anything. Obviously, I used to be a teacher. So, I see the patterns with him. And if it's not practiced daily and brought to their attention daily, that self-awareness hasn't developed. And so he really needs to be consistent. And this is really a way for us to see that it's on his mind, that I need to work on this. It's not for us anything other than seeing the follow through from him and knowing that whether he goes and emails the teacher or he gets the nerve to set up a conference to go talk to them, because that's really challenging. It's just for us to know that it's on his mind, he's thinking about it, he's trying to figure out how to be successful at that.
And like meeting minutes in a previous meeting. It's like, okay, you go over the meeting minutes, from the previous meeting, because you want to be able to follow through with the things that you discussed in the previous meeting. And it's just a way to organize your thoughts. And that's one of the things that he has a lot of trouble with. I honestly have a lot of trouble with too. So I try to use, those kinds of things to help me.
Is this very different from what you plan to do with your class as far as how do you measure a student's progress when it comes to that? Because self-advocacy, because a lot of times as a teacher, you don't always pay attention to one particular child. It's very difficult to get information about their self-advocacy when they're going through 5 classes a day or 6, and they've got many other students. Unless you're honed into one kid, it's just not possible, I know. It's just not possible to keep your eye on one kid and be monitoring everything they're doing. It just is not possible. So we're just trying to figure out how we can hold him accountable and be able to monitor it ourselves, because there's really no decent way to have this be a measurable goal unless we have something in check with him to say, well, you are thinking about it, you are noticing that you maybe didn't do so well on a lab, or maybe you need to go back in, maybe you didn't finish a lab. That's something he's going to probably struggle with, is completing labs sometimes. So in biology, I need help with, I have to go finish my lab. So he's going to have to coordinate that somehow with his teacher, based off of her office hours, what he can do to come in and finish the lab and stuff like that. So,
I would say this year is going to be largely done through me, though. Just because they're not adults yet. They're not. So I expect that I'm going to be doing a lot more babying now than I'm going to be but I'm going to sort of teach them and show them how to do it on their own. Like, I would talk them through, oh, you didn't finish your lab? Okay, so let's email her, or let's call her and ask her what would be best for her and you to work this out together. Like, I'm that mediator person, and I expect that I'm probably going to be that for probably a couple of years.
So how do we know that?
The self-advocacy goal seems to be one of those that is,
You have a lot of kids that have those issues?
oh yeah. Oh yeah, because it's a typical high school. Like, they're not adults. They're not good at it, and even
I get
adults
that.
aren't.
Right.
So
You don't have to be spectrumy for that. I get that.
It
But
takes a long time.
the autism component just compounds that.
Oh.
Trust me. The ordering and all that, and the being able to speak up. Yeah, he's aversive to it. The spectrum.
Still, yes. So I don't want to push. I don't push too hard. I don't want to overwhelm, because I know that that's, not going to do anybody any good. And just being a little bit, I feel like being sort of patient and allowing the 4 years of growth. This might be a goal that he has forever.
I'm sure
and
he
I've
will.
totally seen that. Yeah. Right. So don't. For me, I think that these are just, if we're seeing some progress in that he is becoming more willing to send the email. He's becoming more willing to go to talk to a teacher.
I think if he doesn't,
Okay, so then,
that we're not,
if that's not the case, then how do we quantify that? To tell you honestly, because
that's the whole point of us trying to do
the
this
problem that I
service.
have with it is that if there's no data, I can't say that was met or not. It wasn't met. All I have to rely on is anecdotal. And that's what I've had a problem with in the past, is that somebody tells me, he's doing great. And I see, and maybe it's just that it's my kid and whatever, but I see a lot of differences. And I see
So
other
do
kids
people.
too.
Yeah.
And so it's not like I'm, in this, sound chamber that I can't compare. I do see that other kids have developed that skill quite a bit more. So I want to know how we can quantify that in a way that you guys think is appropriate, but at the same time that we're satisfied that is something that's being followed through with.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably something that's really hard to do, because it's one of those things that with one teacher.
I understand that it's hard. It's just I understand that it's
Yeah,
hard.
I
It's
don't-
just a matter of, well, how are we going to do it?
It's almost like the goal isn't effective. So I think for us, we need to have something that allows us to be able to measure that goal and quantify it, because otherwise it'll be the same as before. Not to say you're not going to do a good job on your end, but we have to have a way, goals have to be measurable. That is part of the goal writing process. They have to be measurable.
In the past, what you're saying is
They have not.
They just-
It's
They would say
really-
he's
Oh,
doing
he raised his
great.
hand 2 times
So
in a
it's
quarter, and that's because he knew the
Yeah,
answer.
there've been
It wasn't for self-advocacy.
that's been our experience, is that in the past it's been very anecdotal in terms of the way that we've been, that progress has been measured, and we're at a point where we feel like that's not something that we need to do.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So that makes it really hard to measure.
Well, and if
Yeah.
it's a verbal conversation that he had, that he decided to self-advocate for himself, if he never tells anybody that he did it,
Well, that's why if we have a sheet that he has to record it on, it's just making him know, I have to be responsible for this.
Is he
it's,
going to have time for that?
He'll make time.
well, it'll be in your class.
But that means less.
Is there a lesson
Less
plan
help.
for study skills?
No.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
So at West Ranch, we have a lot more time. We have an hour and a half, and I did a lesson every day for a half an hour, but here we don't. 55
Okay.
minutes is not enough time for them to get everything that they need to do, asking all the questions, doing all of that. There's not enough time. So
Okay, so we're just trying to figure
keep
out.
it very flexible so that
Yeah.
when things happen, I can go with
So I think if he decided to communicate with the teacher, whether it's through email or verbal, he can probably say, hey, can you also include Mrs. Colley on hey, I came and talked to you, so she can write it down and we can work on it and learning strategies. This way, then there is some form of a tracking system.
Let me tell you, I have had so many fights with my son. We've prepared him mentally. You're going to go in. You're going to talk to Mrs. Davis or whoever. We talked about it for days and days. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. No. Then I
So
got to the
now-
point where I had to threaten him. And I said, look, this is your last day. If you don't go talk to your teacher about this, I'm not picking you up from school. And so I know it sounds horrible. I mean,
It's not a far walk, is it?
no, it is actually.
From Rio is farther.
But what I'm saying is he needs to be pushed, and that we feel like we need something to serve as a reminder. I have to be mindful of this. He is not mindful. He is.
I'll give you an
spacey.
example, okay? He washes his face in the sink, and I swear there is, I mean, I have water damage on the first floor from